Let's turn next to day 36 in Russia's war on Ukraine. Another attempt this morning to get help to the people who are trapped in Mariupol. This is new video into us from inside that city. People lining up for water and telling journalists they have to wait for hours just to get a few liters. That lineup is outside a hospital held by Russians. Russian troops act as the guides for the French news team that recorded this video. Lined up along the dark corridors, people wait for treatment, some of them wounded by the fighting. Ukrainian officials accuse Russian forces of deliberately targeting hospitals. A report out from the World Health Organization documents more than 70 attacks now that have hit medical facilities, ambulances, and doctors. Salima Shivji is going to lead off our coverage this Thursday morning. She is in Lviv, Ukraine this morning, at a center where some of the people who have escaped the fighting in Mariupol could eventually end up. So if you would, Salima, set that scene for us today.
Yes, that's right, Heather. This is an aid distribution center, so there is a giant pile of shoes here. There are really big boxes full of clothes and a long lineup of people. These are all people who have been displaced from many cities, some of the hardest hit cities in Ukraine, and heading their way to the west, where it is, of course, relatively safer. They're still in need of supplies. So inside, once they do get inside, there's medicine in case people need it. There are packaged, portions of food that people can take with them wherever they are staying here. Some people are staying in schools, kindergartens, some are staying with friends. I spoke with a young couple here, actually, who escaped Kherson, which was one of the first cities to fall into Russian hands, under Russian control. They have a 2-week-old newborn baby in their arms, wrapped up in a wool sweater. So, just trying to get the supplies they need to take care of little David in entirely new surroundings. So a lot of people, of course, displaced across Ukraine, some 6.5 million people. And many of those people are also still trying to get out of desperate situations. Of course, we've been speaking about Mariupol for weeks now, about exactly how desperate the situation is for tens of thousands of people still trapped there. And there is a renewed attempt to get some of those people out. But I'm going to let the mayor of Mariupol set the scene of how desperate the situation is right now. Take a listen.
Практически закончилась еда. Отсутствует вода, и мы сегодня кричим всем нашим международным партнерам, и даже в том числе призываем все сегодня международные миссии объединиться ради одной цели – спасения жизни мирного населения города Мариуполя.
So we've been hearing that urgency from so many officials in the besieged port city of Mariupol under near constant bombardment for weeks now, for days on end, and it hasn't led to much movement, but there is movement today. There is a convoy of buses heading towards Mariupol. About 17 have left already, a total of 45 expected to get there in order to get more people out. In the last few days, we've heard of only a trickle of people being able to escape the city, some 1,500 yesterday, some 1,600 the day before. Basically, they've only been able to leave by private buses trying to navigate the Russian checkpoints. Today, there's word from Russia that they are willing to open a humanitarian corridor, and that intent is confirmed by the International Red Cross. So the International Red Cross is working with this situation to get that more stable and larger humanitarian corridor set up and make sure it's safe. So the Red Cross is working to get supplies into the city and get those buses in and get those buses packed to see if they can get so many of those people trapped out and into safer areas. The route would be through a Russian-controlled city of Bryansk before the convoy would then head to Zaporizhia, which is, of course, in Ukrainian hands. So that is the intent. Whether that happens today, that is the hope. It could be tomorrow. The Red Cross is working towards something larger tomorrow. So there are questions in terms of when that much-needed supplies and that convoy will be able to get the people out of Mariupol. But definitely movement on that front today.
Which is encouraging, given what we are seeing and have been following for the past weeks now, Salima. A wider ceasefire, of course, is one of the key goals for Ukraine in its peace talks with Russia. Those negotiations are set to resume tomorrow, we understand. So are we hearing anything ahead of the resumption of talks, Salima?
Yeah, set to resume tomorrow, but by video link. So not the in-person talks that we saw earlier this week in Istanbul, which of course led to a bit of a glimmer of optimism. That optimism has tamped down the rest of this week. We did hear from Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky as well, saying that he is not really trusting Russia at its word, and he isn't quite sure that the path towards a ceasefire is stable and ready right now. Take a listen to what more President Zelensky had to say. Oh, I believe we don't have a clip of President Zelensky. So there is, there's not a lot of optimism on the ground here when you speak to people in Lviv that there is a potential for a stop in movement in military attacks that we heard from Russia earlier this week. But there is somewhat of a movement around the capital, Kyiv. It seems to be slight withdrawal. According to the Ukrainians, they believe that's just a move towards the eastern part of the country, and that there will be renewed attacks from the Russian troops concentrated on the east. So that is the sense that we're getting from Ukrainian officials on the lay of the land and what they expect to happen today as they await word to see if they're able to get those humanitarian corridors open and get some of the civilians trapped in the middle of this in cities that have been utterly devastated to get them out safely. Heather?
Definitely something, a story that we will be watching today. With your help, thank you, Salima. I appreciate it. Salima Shivji, live in Lviv, Ukraine this morning.